I just want to start off by saying it would be dishonest of me to say that climate change and fracking is a link that everybody involved in the anti-fracking movement draws, because that would be very far from the truth. In fact, there's various prominent people involved in the anti-fracking movement, such as Ian Crane, who's a conspiracy theorist, and with another guy who was down at Barton Moss, used to do quite a lot of singing there, and the third verse of one of his songs was, "You can stick your global warming up your arse." So, you know, there isn't that direct link by some people there, and it's the link with fracking is something that's had to be taken into the movement, which I would say perhaps you might think this flippant, but more driven by the effects it may have on people's house prices than it has about concern for climate change. And actually, whilst that we might disapprove of that, that's actually what's driving a big resistance in virtually every single community in this country where they're proposing to do it. Which is now, I think there's 450 different groups everywhere. They try, apply, do it. First thing that happens is a massive response from the community across all social classes and everything. And one of the reasons that the government are going to have a big problem trying to carry this through, and in fact I would say most of the people involved in the movement are pretty optimistic that we're going to win on this one, and so far the anti-fracking movement is basically undefeated. For most people, I say the key thing is all about air quality, potential pollution of the water supply, amount of traffic going through, all of which are very valid points in their own right, and obviously a lot of people, well, everybody involved in the movement would agree with them. But the tack I've taken right from the beginning of this is to link it directly with the climate change, and instead of us being an anti-movement, you know, we're just against fracking, I've said we should really be a for movement instead. And one of the things I push very strongly is the pamphlet, which you can buy copies of. I'll commend it to everybody, 1 Million Climate Jobs pamphlet, and said instead of fracking, what we really want is this, or something like this. And that particular position, I must say, has grown in strength, and people like Friends of the Earth and all that supporting it, Green People, Green Party. And now I would say possibly just about the majority opinion in the movement as a whole, that we should, instead of investing in fracking, what we should be doing is investing in renewables and energy conservation and things like that, and that's a much sounder idea than basically fracking our countryside and polluting us and increasing climate change. Because and as I usually speak on platforms where everybody before me says, you know, air pollution, water pollution, whatever. And I've taken a position and said, well, even if it didn't add to the threat of climate change, which it clearly does. I've been on radio interviews where I've had so-called experts from Quadrilla and these other fracking companies arguing that shale gas is a good transition fuel, that it's a good way for us to transition from coal and all this stuff into renewables. But the reality is, from research at Cornell University in America, carried out by Tony and Graffia, who are involved in fracking, some of you may know, which shows an average leak of between 2.5% and 9.5% of all the wells. That's including abandoned wells, many obviously recently been abandoned because of the low oil prices. It's basically made some of them uneconomic. When you bear in mind that methane gas is about 25 times more potent a greenhouse gas than what CO2 is, obviously leaks of between 2.5% and 8% of something that's 25 times more potent than something if you were burning the gas and just producing CO2 and heat. Obviously, I would say there's a good case for reopening coal-fired power stations as a transition fuel. So, you know, and I've said even if it was safe on knobs on, we don't actually need it. I may actually use that phrase very often, even if it was safe with knobs on. Because we shouldn't actually want it, don't need it, when there's all these things like that at our disposal, which would create more jobs. Highest expectation of jobs created by by the fracking industry. It started off, they hired a company, I think they're called AMEC, to do a research. They came up with about 30,000 it would employ if it was all rolled out, and then the following week David Cameron inflated that himself to 60,000. He just arbitrarily increased it by 100%, and then a few months later the House of Lords, I want to say, 250,000. Even if it was 250,000, and you know it's totally grossly exaggerated, it's still fourth of a million, isn't it? So We estimate about 20 times more jobs will come from investing the same type of money in that. It would also help us reduce our energy bills. They keep saying fracking will reduce our energy bills, but the reality is it's gas market is determined internationally. Won't do things, whereas insulating people's houses and things like that will bring the bills down. It'll also help us to secure our own domestic energy supply, reduce CO2 emissions by 85%, and save us. The big thing I always argue about Lord Stern asked by Gordon Brown's government to do a report on the cost of climate change. You know, the result of his investigation was that he estimated it would cost 20 times more in 10 years' time to have the same effect on climate change. And I always use this example about, imagine that somebody can said your roof's knackered, if you fix it now it'll cost you £1,000, but if you leave it for 10 years and the water gets in, not only will it cost you more than that, but your gable end could fall off, all front of your house could come and you could end up with a catastrophe costing you 20 times more. More sane people would possibly even take a loan out, right, to save the massive cost down the line, and yet here we are, we have a government that's basically saying stuff that for a game of soldiers, we're going to do this instead. So, big problem there. In terms of news update about where we're at, government's obviously having difficulty trying to roll this programme out. It's determined to do so, so it says. Brought out a bill, a law called the Infrastructure Act. I don't know whether any of you know about that, just before the general election, which basically allows them, if it's a big project in the national interest, it can be sanctioned by the government directly. And also as a result of the recent victory we had in Lancashire, where the local county council planners turned down Quadrilla's application, they're also introducing measures now that is after 16 weeks local planners, councils can't make a decision, government will just step in and make the decision for them. Which you can imagine what will happen there. We've also had a situation just close to Wigan where I live, Skelmersdale, where they wanted to dump a lot of the frack fluid and various other waste in this landfill site in Skelmersdale. It also got turned down by Lancashire County Council as well, by every single elected body that could possibly stop it turned it down. So what they did was they made it into a bigger project, so it then came under these infrastructure build act directives, and now that's going ahead and it's going to be 5 times bigger than the original one. So tells you what they're trying to do, and they're going to literally, where I live near Wigan, dump all the waste or a lot of it there. Obviously, when you think that only a few years ago Tories were going on about localism and how they were going to change the law to allow local residents to object to houses being built, you know, when it comes to fracking, they're not going to get a say in that. We're now in a 14th licensing round in terms of areas up for grab for potential drillers to come in and explore. These would include sites of special scientific interests, areas of outstanding natural beauty. They want to frack them. But it was interesting, and I'm sure you'll like this, that in all of the south of England, there's all these areas being given out, but there's one place where there seems to be everything going round it, and if you look at it, get your zoom on, Whitney constituency. I wonder who lives there. Right? It's so great, but it's not happening in Whitney. So the attitude that the anti-fracking movement have taken is we can fight this on a number of fronts. It doesn't need to be done politically. We can make it totally economic for them trying to implement by basically just making life hell for them. It certainly cost IGAS an absolute fortune to do the stuff in Barton Moss. So there's a big attack on the investors, you know, saying it's not going to be worth your while if you do it. And if you look at the share prices currently for Quadrilla and people like IGAS, they're absolutely at rock bottom. There's few people want to take up these sites because they're concerned about the opposition they're going to get. And basically the government's in a crisis here, but determined to drive ahead with it. And all I can say in terms of the movement that I'm directly involved in, I've been for 4 years, and know most of the people who are involved in it, is that they can't wait for the government, you know, come at them. they're that confident that we'll build a mass movement and defeat it. So I think that's all pretty well and good. Obviously people like me are pushing the climate change thing. Various things have come out of it, such as, for example, the week after, next Sunday is the big demo in Manchester. There's an event on the following week in Manchester, conference on climate change, time to act, which I shall be going to. I don't know if any of you staying up in Manchester for that. You might be interested in some leaflets on that. But I said the report I will give on in terms of where we are as an anti-fracking movement is very upbeat, pretty confident, and we can't wait for the buggers to attack us.